Welcome to the In My Opinion show. I am Henry Hatter, your host. Today we have a wonderful candidate, the mayoral candidate of Flint, Michigan. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you.
I do like interviewing you because you're erudite and you're spontaneous. And our audience love to watch the actions of people who are well prepared for the show.
Okay.
And have something to say.
I have something to say, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. What are the most important issues facing the city of Flint today?
You know what? I believe the most important issues facing the city of Flint include the water, because we have a crisis here. We have a public health issue as a result of the water, and it's one that we've never seen in the city of Flint before when you're talking about public health crisis, infrastructure crisis. So water. Public safety is another one of the hot topics. It's a high priority issue. Public safety is always in the paper. We're always hearing about the crime in Flint. And I'd also have to say blight in neighborhoods. But those are things that, as mayor, you're in charge of. You have a lot more say-so about what happens there. Something that, while it's a separate entity, that's also a priority is the school system, our schools. So those are the things that I believe are the priorities: water, public safety, neighborhood revitalization, stabilization, and our schools.
I think that the public, you should have great feedback from that, because that is what I read that the public is interested in. They're not interested in all of the other fluff, but they're interested in things that touch their lives every day,
Right.
and that they want corrected. Now, Karen, why should the people of Flint vote you mayor?
Well, I believe I'm the best candidate for mayor. That's the first reason. But also because I'm here to represent them. And I want to represent Flint and the citizens of Flint in a way that they want to be represented. I believe that we've had a lot of failed leadership and broken trust, and I want to reestablish that. I think that's really important, especially when you want to get people to follow you and believe in you. And so I will speak up, I will speak out, and I will represent the citizens of Flint.
How will you differ from the past mayor or multiple mayors in the last 10 years?
Well,
what would you bring that's different?
You know what, and I'm going to say actually a piece of what I just said. I think there's been a lot of broken trust. I think that there's been a lot of failed leadership. When you hear people talking, sometimes you'll hear people even say they don't want to go vote because it doesn't matter to them sometimes, because there's been such broken trust. And so that's one of the things I want to bring back is trust and confidence and hope in leadership. So that's something that will make me different.
Do you think that much of that was broken and there were opportunities missed in the last 10 years or 12 years that mayors should have taken opportunities for developing new trends in the city that would bring us to a more successful?
Yeah, I do believe there were opportunities missed. And I guess I'm going to talk about even more recently, because water is on everybody's mind. And when you look at what's happened here in the city of Flint the last year and a half, people being told the water was good, the water was fine to drink. And people knew intuitively, when they knew it didn't look right, it didn't smell right, it didn't taste right, that their clothes smelled, that something was wrong. So that was a missed opportunity for 16 months to say the water was okay, until Virginia Tech came in, till the concerned pastors pushed it, until the medical community spoke out, and then okay, yes, acknowledging we have a problem. There were other opportunities where trust was broken, or opportunities to speak up. When you look at what happened with the millage money, that voters voted on, and while the millage was promoted to the people as a way to get more fire officers, more police officers on the streets, and that didn't happen. And so to have come back and explain to people, okay, here's how that money was used, that was a missed opportunity. So there have been missed opportunities, and that's something that I plan on doing better, is letting people know, because we've got to be open and honest and transparent with the public and let them know what's going on.
Sounds good to me. Now, how will you develop a workable relationship with City Council, which sometimes can be pretty tough?
You know what? One of the things I think about whether it's city council or whoever I have to work with, is to let them know that I am a strong leader. Is also to let them know that I am going to be open, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be transparent, and I'm going to seek their input. Because I don't want to make decisions in isolation. But the other thing is, I would hope that that we would be professional enough, respectful enough, not to bring personality kinds of issues into this, because we've got too many challenges facing the city of Flint. And so we ought to be able to agree on issues. We ought to be working on issues. We've got a lot of issues and challenges, and we all know what they are. We all know what they are. And so if we can put some things in place to say, here's how we want to address that issue, here's what we know we want to have happen, we ought to be able to work on those. So that's what I'd like to do. But I want them to believe me and know if I tell them something, I mean it, and that I'm going to do that. So that's part of it. That trust factor, that confidence factor all plays into that. And so I want them to see that as well.
Well, the mayor is the top leader. He's the people's top advocate in the city of Flint. Or she, pardon me.
I was going to get you.
And the mayor is responsible for finding reliable, dependable, renewable sources of funding in the city. How will you go about assuring the people that you would have absolutely a good pulse on getting the money you need to run the city?
Well, you know what? This is one of the things I've talked about more than once. People have said, "Well, what are you going to do when you first get into office?" Well, you need to know what you have. You need to know what you're working with. And so one of the things I've always talked about is, okay, sitting with those department heads, let's look at the budget, because we need to know what money we do have. Maybe we do need to do an audit to see where funds have gone. But that's where we have to start. But some of the other things that I've always thought about as far as looking at financial obligations is getting us a tax base. We've got to have a tax base, because that's how the city gets money.
What do you mean by a tax base?
Well, when you look at, people have left Flint. And some of it, a lot of it is because we have the water issues, because we have the crime issues, because we have the issues with the schools. Our neighborhoods are not being developed the way we would like to see that in certain areas. So we want to keep the people in Flint that are in Flint. We want to attract people to come to Flint. We want to keep the businesses that are in Flint and attract new ones. One of the things I talked about is saying I want a bird in the hand and a bird in the bush. So we've got to really appreciate what we have and still do things to bring new people, to bring new businesses to the city of Flint, so we can create that tax base.
Well, when you say tax base, you're not being clear enough. Please be very specific when you say tax.
Well, I mean,
now you got a tax base out there. You got a tax base
right, but
out
we don't have what
but
we
it's
used
inadequate.
to have. Exactly.
You're saying that
it's
that
not
tax
what we
base,
used to have.
okay.
Bills are paid. Like if you think about the water, say there used to be 100 people that were sharing that.
Okay.
Now there's only 50 that live in that area.
Now I can understand.
You can
that.
understand
I can
that.
understand the
and
picture
so
now.
That's why I'm saying we've got to keep those 50 that are here.
Okay.
We don't want to lose any more of
Okay.
them. We want to keep them here, but we need to bring more. Even when you look at the schools, they get their money based on the number of students. If we're continuously losing students, that's what happens.
I understand you now.
Okay.
How
Good.
Well, and that's a good picture for people to take a look at. And people are not stupid. They
No.
do know when you lose 100 people, you lose 50 people out of your base
Right.
of 100
Those other 50
that are
have to
contributing
pick
to
up.
the tax.
Exactly.
Other people have to pick up that load because they have
Exactly.
investment dollars out there to retire.
That's right.
And what else could you do, by the way, to assure that you can?
Well, we have to address those things that we talked about right at the beginning as far as what are the issues, what are the priorities. Because if we don't address the water issue, if we don't address the infrastructure, if we don't address public safety, if we don't address our neighborhood issues and our schools, that will continue to be part of our challenge.
I guess what I was looking for.
What are you looking
would
for?
you encourage go to your voting base and ask them to consider tax increase.
I don't know what you know what? That's something that.
Because that's part of what the city needs. Every city needs it.
You're right.
Would you have the confidence?
Well, it's funny. I'll tell you this because you just made me think about something. People have said about another millage coming, and one of the things I've said is right now, if we were asked to vote on a millage, I don't think it would go through because there's been that lack of trust. We didn't get what we bargained for the last time. And so what I have said is, if I tell you I'm going to spend $1 on A, I'm going to spend $1 on A. So if I came and asked for that, I would want the people, and that's why I've talked about establishing that trust, because I would want them to trust that she's going to do with the money what she said she was going to do with the money. And that's something we can count on. That's what we can take to the bank. And so that's why I go back to underlying everything we've talked about, that trust has to be reestablished. Because I could take it to them and they're going to say, no, not if you haven't done A, B, and C, and you told us you were going to do A, B, and C. And that's why I think it's so important to say, when I get in there, here are the things I need to look at, because I don't want to tell you I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E. And really, you get in there and you say, you can do A, B, C. You can't do those other things. So that's why it's so important to have that qualified, competent, capable team around you. And so that's one of the things that I have to do, is make sure I have that great team, that great knowledge base, those experts that we need to have around the table making those decisions, so we know what to go and ask for, so we know what to put in place, so we know, okay, we've got to get these businesses here, so we know how we're going to work with the schools and do some things.
Hey, Karen, let's look at that, continue to look at this. And my critics have said, Henry, you didn't give the mayoral candidate enough time to respond to everything that she wanted to say. So some things I'll have to move on, because there are a lot of things that we have to. But I want to go back to this issue. Now, you say that you need to improve the tax base because the people have left the city, and there's inadequate money to run the city. Now, if you couple that with making all of the necessary cuts, let's assume that the previous, someone did something right for a change. They cut the expenses as lean as they could. Okay. Then you have no money to operate with, and you need to replenish that money. Okay? You've cut everything, and your tax base is left. That leaves you with a deficit, and you're going to have to close that deficit by doing something. And how would you do that?
You made me think about something as well, because one of the things that I've talked about, and in light of what has happened here in the city of Flint with us having this public health infrastructure crisis issue, is saying that we need to have Flint declared a disaster area, because we need some federal funds. And the city doesn't have the money to do it. The state doesn't have enough money to do it. We really need to get some federal funds in here to help us, because this is, like I said, the worst public health crisis Flint has seen. It's the worst infrastructure crisis Flint has seen. But one of the things that we know is going to happen as a result of all of everything we need to tackle with this infrastructure is it's going to create some jobs. It's going to create jobs for us, because when we're looking at infrastructure, we're talking about water, we're talking about sewer, we're talking about streets, we're talking about sidewalks, we're talking about a whole lot of things where we're going to create some jobs for the city of Flint. And that's something that hadn't been considered, I don't believe.
Well, I believe you firmly established the fact that we need money.
We need money. And so we do. That's one way to do it. That's one way to get some of the help that we need. It also, like I said, it's going to create some jobs. Maybe it's going to bring some people to Flint, because they have jobs there.
Once you stabilize financial institution in the city of Flint, people will come.
Right.
Okay. Now that you've got that firmly stated,
Well, that's only
How-
one thing that we've got to,
Okay.
that will be stabilized. We've got to stabilize those other things that you talked about as well, as far as public safety. When we talk about crime, we can't continue to hear, every other day on the news that someone's been killed. There's been another murder. We can't continue to hear that. So there's some things that has to get stabilized.
Okay.
It really does.
And we will have other questions pertaining to that.
Okay.
So keep that thought.
Okay,
But
'cause
we got to move on.
Okay.
Now, we've talked about the money and the shortage of money here for the moment. But what assets does Flint can demonstrate that it has to jumpstart the revitalization process? And where would that money be, for
assets.
example?
We do have assets in Flint, and one of the things I've always believed is that we haven't done a very good job promoting ourselves. Because we know we've got crime, we know we have water woes, we know we have, blight and school problems. But as far as bringing new businesses to Flint, we have things to offer. And so that's why if we can stabilize some of those things, because for businesses that need freight and shipping, we've got Bishop Airport. We've got 2 major railways for Flint. We've got, the expressways. We have the hospitals. We have the colleges and universities. And we've got some of the best ones around. We've got U of M Flint. We've got
5 of them. 5 colleges and universities.
Right. Well, yeah, because we have U of M, we have Baker, we have Kettering. We've got Mott Community College. Who am I leaving off?
Detroit College of Business.
Okay, see? And that's my point. We've got the colleges and the universities. We've got a lot of land. We've got a lot of land where we can do some things that should be attractive to businesses. So we have some things going for us as well. But I don't think, a lot of our negative has been what's promoted. A lot of our negative. Every time you turn around, we're number 1 in this, or we're in the top 5, whether it's for crime or, one of the poorest cities. And we have a lot of negative advertising.
We have to turn that around.
We've got to turn it around.
And you didn't say that you had this work pool left by General Motors of tremendous artisans, craftsmen, and
we sure do.
people like that.
We
That's
sure
ready
do that
to
are
engage.
ready to work. They're ready to make a difference in their community. In spite of everything going on, there are a lot of people that want to be here in Flint. There are people that believe in Flint. This is their home. And they see, and there can be a lot of opportunity because you look at it. You remember how downtown used to be?
Yes.
And it was a ghost town, and people said, who's going to come down there? And there's crime, and the list went on and on. But we invested in downtown. We appreciated downtown. And the same can be done.
We're going to come to that later.
Okay.
But continue your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, it doesn't have to stop there. The same can be done for other areas of the city of Flint.
Good. How will you communicate to taxpayers any strategic action you plan to take that may cause you to increase your staff, to raise taxes, or to reduce the debt? Now, there's that. I think there's debt that needs to be retired that the citizen has that's hanging over like a fog over the city of Flint that discourages investments.
But you asked me, okay, how am I going to communicate to them?
How did you communicate this to your public?
There's a lot of different ways to convey this kind of information. Some of it is how we're having a conversation here. Somebody's listening to us, somebody's watching us, and
I hope so.
hear it. They better be.
Yeah. People all over the world, by the way, are watching us and listening.
And so then we have our news media, we have the radio, we have the newspaper, but we can't forget, digital. We're in the digital world, and social media is a great way to get information out. Newsletters are a way to get information out. But one of the things I talked about, in fact, just the other day is your good old-fashioned town hall meetings are another way. And I've talked about needing to do something like that really on a monthly basis because I still have to go back to the fact that I'm trying to be transparent. I'm trying to be honest. I want to be open. I want those lines of communication out there. And so to do something like that quarterly, I don't believe is enough. I think for the first year in office, that's something that needs to take place on a monthly basis because people need to hear what I have to say. People need to hear what the administrative team has to say. I need to hear what they have to say. And it's one thing to do it all of those other ways because those other ways work, but there's nothing like sitting down, talking face to face, and letting the people hear my vision or our vision, and getting the information and the feedback from them as well, because we're in this together. We're in this together. But I really look forward to having just good old-fashioned monthly town hall meetings.
Well, would you then turn to the governor's office and use the governor as a power of influence to help you achieve the goals for the city of Flint?
I'm going to use whatever means necessary.
And the President of the United States.
You know what?
The
Well, that's
power-
funny because
Yeah.
I'm going to use whatever means necessary.
Not because of that political affiliation, but because it's strategic.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to be. That's how you're going to make things happen. You have to be strategic. You have to be. So yeah, I sure will. I sure will. If it means this is where you go to get this done to make this happen, is going to the governor, that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. Or it's the president, or is it communicating with both of these? You know, what do we have to do
In both
to make
directions.
it happen? Exactly, because sometimes you have to go this way and this way, this way and this way. There's not just one way to do it. Sometimes you have to layer. Sometimes you have to layer to be strategic as well.
Will you leverage the power of the mayor's seat across the Mott Foundation, General Motors Corporation, higher education to achieve those goals that will bring about a higher quality of life for the people in the city of Flint?
Well, of course. And I'm glad you asked that question, because we have got to do that. And we also have to do more as far as public-private sectors coming together and working together. We can't do this alone. We've got to all come to the table, because we all have a vested interest in making certain things happen for the city of Flint. And I think we've operated in silos enough, and that's why we haven't been able to get some of these things done. So if private and public don't come together, some of these things won't happen. Yeah, I sure am. You know, one of the other things I talked about was maybe having a liaison from the mayor's office to meet with. You talked about higher institution, to make that line of communication much better, so we can get things happen. Maybe it's appointing a person, myself included, to sit down and have convene meetings where we are talking about how do we come together, how do we pool resources to make things happen for the city of Flint. So yeah.
The Mott Foundation has been a very vital part of moving things around in the city of Flint. You continue to plan to use them.
Yeah,
And General
I
Motors
would love
Corporation,
to work
very
with them.
vital.
Yes, yes.
And higher education,
That's
very
right.
vital to the city
That's
of Flint.
exactly right. That's right. I mean, I don't know how we could not work together and why we would not want to do that.
Now I'm going to come to, I got to move on, but I'm going to
Okay.
come to another issue here that's been plaguing us for a long time. And that's the proposition that we have with the police department. Policeman departments around the country are seen as some policemen, but the police department is a vital part of any city. You
Yes.
must have them.
You must have.
No matter what color they are.
Mhm.
They are very vital. They help people to protect themselves from themselves as well as from each other. So they provide a great service to us. How will you create a culture of policemen who will see their jobs as important and noble and worthwhile, and be good protectors of the people of the city of Flint?
Well, I'm going to start with the last part first, if that's okay. You were saying,
Sure.
how can they protect the people and be good providers
Yes.
for the city of Flint? And one is making sure they have the necessary staffing and the necessary resources they need to do their job. You know, one of the things that was so interesting when I was talking with some of the police officers, there were some basic things that were missing as far as public safety goes. I was talking about walking down certain streets where people pay taxes and don't have street lights. If it's dark to them, it's dark to the police officers. So how do they get in there when the crime has been committed and they can't see? Let's get those lights on. How do they get over there and know it's safe when the grass is this tall and they don't know who's hiding in the grass? So we've got to give them what they need to be able to do their jobs. We've got to give them adequate staffing.
Meaning
One
that you
thing.
would stand behind the police department, even if in some circumstances they had to take a life to carry out their duties.
Sometimes a police officer has to take a life to carry out their duties. We hope that's the last resort. But
Sure.
they know what they should know what they need to do. But it makes me go back to one of the other things that I've been advocating for is prevention and community policing. And that's something that, we did in Flint a long time ago. It was proven. It was done across the country. So that's one of those best practice things that we need to put back into place is community policing, because that's when there's a relationship established with the person in that neighborhood. And police officers, whether they're patrol, detectives, undercover, they need to be regarded as that is a wonderful, honorable job to have. We want them. We need them. And so they deserve to have what they need, whether it's the equipment, whatever they need to do their jobs so they can be safe, keeping us safe.
And that will make us all safe. Not only in the city of
Exactly.
Flint, but anybody who comes into the city of Flint.
Exactly.
A woman with a child walking down the street should be, or a mother or a senior citizen,
Exactly.
or a child should feel safe on the street
They should feel safe on
without
the street.
having to fear for their lives.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
we need that kind of a police department, but we need them with, they need to feel good about themselves.
They need to feel good about
Not
themselves.
a bully with a gun, as they're
Exactly.
seen, but a policeman, like someone who can stick out their chest.
And you know what? And one of the things that makes you feel good about yourself is when you know you have the resources to do what you need
Sure.
to do. I mean, because there's a lot of grant money that's available for them to have the equipment that they need to have. So when we let them know, yeah, we respect you, we need you, and we want to give you everything you need to do so you can take care of us. That brings back honor. That brings back respect, and they deserve that.
Karen, we're getting close to the end, and we've got to
No,
wrap
we
up
can't
here.
be.
And I need to ask you a couple questions that are very apropos for you as mayor. If you would become mayor, now, do you believe in the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state and the City Council?
Yes.
Will you follow them?
Do I believe in it? Yes, I do.
Okay. If a homosexual, people of the same gender came to you to be married, how would you react to that?
How would I react
Yeah.
to that? I don't have a reaction for that. I don't have a reaction for that. One of the things that, you asked me about the Constitution and the law. I'm elected mayor to represent all of Flint. I'm elected mayor to represent the people. I'm elected mayor to hold up the law. So I don't have a reaction.
So that means that you
do
will
what
follow the law.
You do what you're supposed to do when you're an elected official. And
Meaning that you would follow the law.
I follow the law.
Whatever the law says you will.
I follow the law.
You won't use your personal interest. You will follow the law.
Well, I didn't think you were supposed to use your personal interest.
Thank you.
When you're an elected official, you're supposed to follow the law.
Well, we've got about 1 minute left, and I want to ask you, you've been a great candidate today, a great host.
Thank you.
How would you like to have people remember you from this audience?
I would like to have them remember me as I was elected mayor of the city of Flint, as Karen Weaver. But I want them to also remember that I was a mayor, and whatever, that I spoke up, I spoke out, I was honest, I was transparent, and I did what was right for the best.
Well, I
for the
really
people.
enjoyed the conversation, Karen. But
was
as
quick.
always, time comes to an end. I've enjoyed the show. You've been a great person to have on the show, and I hope you'll come back again as mayor.
I hope so too.
We have to fall short of endorsement. I know my host, the other host, says that we can endorse you, but I can't under the circumstances. But I passed it on for you. Thank you, Karen. And for those out in TV land, stay focused.